So welcome back to the podcast, and you're listening to the Traveling Pants of a Single Mom. And today I have my girl, Miss Civilla. How are you doing?
I'm wonderful. Thanks so much for inviting me. I appreciate it.
No problem. Thanks for accepting my invite. So let's tell the people a little bit about yourself and what do you do?
Well, oh my gosh, what do I do? That's a loaded question. Oh my gosh. Well, I'm a podcaster first and foremost because that's what I pretty much walked away from my day job to do years ago. I just started working again and I'm still in healthcare, but I've been podcasting for almost 4 years. June will be 4 years.
Yeah.
So I'm at episode 107 came out this past Monday.
Dang, yes. It's hard out here to podcast, so
It's
4 years,
hard. Almost 4 years. Almost 4 years, and it's very hard.
It is. You know, I have so many days that I want to give up. Like, oh wow, I'm just like, I'm so done with it. No one's listening. Just I can't, but
Yeah.
I'm still pushing. But it's very hard. It's
Yeah.
very,
When you
very
have that
hard.
passion for yeah.
So I like to ask the guests, how did we connect?
We connected at, can we say the name of the place?
Yeah, I mean,
We
it's
can,
about, yeah, we can.
okay. We met at Aetna Specialty
Yeah.
Pharmacy. Yeah, so that's how we know each other. That
Yes.
was what? I was there for about 6 years.
Yeah, I will never forget the day that you just was like, I'm not doing this anymore. And you got your stuff and you was out. And then I noticed, okay, she started a podcast. At that time, I wasn't aware of what podcasting was,
Yeah,
but I knew about it, but I didn't know about it, you know?
yeah,
And
yeah.
so I noticed that, okay, she started a podcast. What's that about? So can you tell people what's the name of your podcast and what is it about?
Well, I call it's a mouthful, but I mean I think that's just the best way to get the word out and get people knowing right away, immediately what it is. And it's called Childless Not by Choice. So
Mm,
bottom line, you already know it's about being childless, not by choice. And so that's why they say it's best to, name your podcast as close to what it is you're talking about so people get it almost immediately.
right. So even though we get it, can you go into depth about the podcast, what you
hmm
bring, or what your podcast is about? Even though it's pretty much
Oh
self-explanatory,
yeah,
but
sure.
just more in depth on your concept, what it's about, what are you teaching, and stuff like that.
Sure. Well, I started the podcast because I was suffering in silence, basically. I wanted children, never had them, never was able to have them. I had a lot of issues with fibroids. I had 3 myomectomies, and for those who don't know, a myomectomy is basically fibroid removal surgery.
Mhm.
And so I had 3 of those in the course of 10 years.
Wow.
And then one of them, they had removed like 27 fibroids in one of those surgeries. Yeah. So, I mean, I was trying to buy time by having these surgeries, trying to wait for the right guy, blah, blah, blah. That didn't work out. Um, and then eventually in 2011, while I was still at our former place of employment, I
Mhm.
had a hysterectomy. I had a really bad, I'm trying not to be too graphic, but I had a really bad accident at work. And it was during a meeting, and it was in November, and I thought to myself, you know what? I'm not doing this anymore. Because I was having accidents every month.
Oh,
And on top of that kind of accident.
yeah,
So
right.
yeah, it was every month accidents. They were crazy. Every month I had to pack like I was going on a trip just because, you know, it was accident time. Every time it was that time of the month for me, and that November it was a particularly bad accident. And that I went outside. I can remember I stood in that building across from our building where we worked, and I called my OBGYN and I said, schedule me for December. I'm having a hysterectomy. And they're like, oh, okay. And then my OBGYN was like, Civilla, I know this is not the outcome you wanted, but trust me when I tell you, you're going to have an exponentially better quality of life once you do it. And I'm like, you're right. This is not what I wanted to hear. But, you know, I was tired of the accidents and tired of the bloating and looking pregnant when I wasn't and all that crazy stuff. And then on top of that, having to hear people make comments about not having children. Or you can have one of mine. Somebody told me that just the other day. Somebody came here to pick something up, and she was like, oh, so what's your podcast about? And I said, well, it's about informed about people who wanted but could not have kids. And she says, oh, you can have one of mine. Just looked at her and smiled.
That's like insensitive.
You know, yeah, it's like there are people who just don't get it. And so that's when I said, you know what? I can't be the only one. And so I started the podcast to start talking about it. And I realized during the course of the last 107 episodes that I was also healing from the hurt of not getting the opportunity to have kids. And people had asked me, are you healing? Is this healing for you? And I'm like, you know what? It is. So yeah, that's where I talk to men and women around the world. I hear from men and women around the world. And I talked to them. This past episode was about life insurance and long-term care when you don't have children. Because some people have children, and some communities in the world have children because they think the children will take care of them when they get old, which doesn't always happen. But when you're childless, what do? Who's gonna take care of you when you become infirm, or God forbid if you have a dreaded dementia or Alzheimer's? What's gonna happen? So that's what we talked about in this last episode. We talked about a lot of different things. Yeah.
Right. So what's some of your feedback from women that are going through the same things that you're going through?
I did not know what I signed up for. I did not know what I signed up for when I started. Oh my gosh. I have had to learn how to be empathetic, which is not a problem for me because I have the personality of an encourager anyway. I'm a motivational, encouraging type person anyway. And maybe because of that, I've had to learn how to, I don't want to sound mean when I say this, but a little bit of a distance so that I don't get taken in with everybody's situation. And then there's nothing left in me. I get all sapped out and just
get burnt out.
Yeah, right. I don't want to get burnt out. So there are people who have told me, I have a group on Facebook, and some women have considered suicide. Some are still trying. Some are there with family who just don't get it. Their family members are like, well, why can't you just be, why can't you just do?
The type of women that come in is people that hasn't had like a hysterectomy or something like that. And some women just are continuing to try and it's just not happening.
Some of them, but the women who are still trying come into the group too. But I'm talking really to the woman who's never going to have children. Like that's the woman who I am. And so I want to talk to those especially because it's a continued heartbreak.
Yeah.
And so, it's loss. And how do you deal with loss? We've all suffered some type of loss, and you don't just get over it in a month or 2 or 6 months or a year. It's just something that you learn to live with.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm trying to teach them to do is how to live with the loss and how to deal with it and how to create proper boundaries so that their family members don't take advantage of them because they don't have kids. And they're like, oh, you don't have any kids. You should have enough time and you should have enough money. So why can't you help me out?
Right. And I know that it's just like a difficult process. And someone who doesn't have issues conceiving, they could never relate to someone who is struggling in that department. It's like you look, and I have friends that's been trying and nothing, and the pain that they feel each month when they think, okay, maybe this is it, maybe this month is it. I have a friend of mine that's done surgery to try to repair certain things, and the disappointment, it's like I can feel it for her as a woman. She's not at the space where it's like, okay, boom, you can't, we have to just remove certain things and you can't, but just knowing that you have to do certain things to say, okay, I got to get surgery, hopefully this will work. I got to do this, hopefully this will work. It's like a hurtful process to see her go through. And I can imagine your podcast is a good thing for many women, because it's a lot of women, like you said, you suffer in silence. It's a lot of women that suffers in silence that don't say, okay, I'm having problems trying to conceive, or I wanted to conceive, but I've had this issue, so now I can't never conceive, And so I know that your platform is like an amazing thing, and I'm sure you have a plethora of women that come in. Where can people go to join your group?
Well, they can just go to Facebook. Civilla. The group is called Childless, Not by Choice with Civilla Morgan.
Okay.
And so they can go there. Now, there's another group called Childless, Not by Choice Supporters with Civilla Morgan. And that group is for people who have children but just want to be of a support, maybe to a family member who doesn't have children. So that's another group that I have. And then, of course, I have the Facebook page. And I'm on Twitter and at Civilla1, and Instagram at Joy and Relevance. So I try to be all over the place, because some of my listeners have found me on Instagram. They don't prefer Facebook, and some have found me on Facebook by searching. And I actually did a poll in my group and asked, where did you find my podcast? How did you find out about me? And a lot of them had maybe just gotten the bad news that they can't have kids, or they were just dealing with messy family members who don't know or use proper boundaries, and they just got on Facebook and started doing a search.
Have you ever considered adopting?
I did try to adopt. That was before Aetna. I tried twice, and both times I had even gotten the life insurance policy, because they make you get life insurance. There's all these things that you go through as a childless, not by choice woman that people just don't know. The things you have to do. And so I had gotten, and that's what I talk about in episode 107. I had gotten a $250,000 life insurance policy, because they want you to have one in case something happens to you. The child has something, and they don't make natural mothers have a policy. Right. Of course, there was no problem with me doing it. I went and got it, but both times that I tried, it didn't work out. It just didn't work out. And so I have a different type of policy now. But again, I talk about that in episode 107, the different types of insurance. And honestly, I think everybody, whether they have kids or not, should listen to the episode. And just to be transparent, I'm not with a firm right now, but I am life and health insurance licensed in the state of Florida. So, it's just important to talk about those things, but it's just another thing that a childless, not by choice woman has to go through is, you got to go get a policy.
Right. So are there, other than getting a policy, are there stipulations like, okay, you want to adopt, do they have like certain criteria that they have to provide you the opportunity to adopt? Or are there, other than having an insurance policy, what are other things that they require of a single woman to adopt?
Oh, they're going to go through your finances. They're going to go through your house, see how you keep your house, your job history, everything. Just you name it. They're going to go through everything and talk to family, talk to friends, and just see, character witnesses and all that kind of stuff. So.
Wow. Do you think it's easier for a husband and a wife to adopt versus a single woman, or a single dad, or a single guy?
I think it's generally easier for a couple to adopt than a single person. One of the times that I tried to adopt, I went to, it was a church up in North Florida. They were having some kind of adoption fair or something. And so I went to, listen. And I remember when I came back and I called them, I called several times and they didn't return my phone call. And I just assumed it was because I was single, because there were couples there as well. What they didn't know is I probably had more than the couples because I was a stockbroker at the time. So I probably had more income and more, whatever was needed. Like I said, I went and got the policy. I did everything I needed to do, but people just make assumptions. So it didn't work out. And then the other time I tried, and maybe it was for a good. I always believe it was for a good, but I tried with another agency right here in Orlando, and I had made the appointment. I took time off from work. Again, I was still a stockbroker at the time. Took time off from work, and when I went to go look for the agency, I couldn't find it. Mind you, I know the area. It's not like I was new to town.
Right.
Couldn't find it. And when I got back to work and called, I said, I tried finding you and I tried calling you. They wouldn't answer. And when I got back to work, they answered. And her response was, oh, wow.
Wow.
Yeah. I was like,
dang. So are you done trying to adopt or?
Oh, yeah. No, I'm not. No, I'm not at the age group. No, thanks. I'm good.
You're over it.
I'm done.
You're pretty much in that stage where you have accepted, or you're accepting your situation, and basically, okay, this is what it is for me. So, can you talk a little bit about how you said that episode 107? You guys are basically talking about like what happens when you get older. What are some of the things you have planned for yourself, so that you don't have to feel, I don't even know what it is you would feel at that time, whether it's loneliness or just abandonment, or maybe no one's going to be there. Like, what are some of the things you have prepared for yourself?
Well, I think the big thing is loneliness, and so I really believe in community quite a bit, and I talk about community quite a bit on my podcast and on my platform, because as childless and single people, men or women, because I've interviewed men as well, and so when you've got to create a sense of community, and not just fake community, but really people who are going to be looking for you if they don't see you. Even send the police looking for you if they don't see, what I mean? Right. If they live far away. True community. And I even have a community site on my website, childlessnotbychoice.net, where you can actually go in and join the community on the website. And so I really, really believe in community, and just being on the lookout for people and taking cues from people who may be, you run into people who they'll talk your ear off, like elderly people. And it's because they don't have anybody to talk to. Right. And so you kind of, be kind and be nice to people, because you don't know what they're dealing with, what they're going through. And again, like on episode 107, I talk about getting long-term care insurance. Some people may be too young for it right now, but think about having long-term care insurance, because we're all living to be older. God willing, we're just generally living longer these days because of medicine. So you have to have some kind of long-term care insurance. I mean, suppose you get ill to where you can't go get your own groceries or go to your doctor's appointments. Who's going to take you, and who's going to pay them to take you? So we don't think about those things when we're young. Right, we sure don't. Absolutely not. Right. So you just basically focus on having like a strong community of people that okay, right. This person will have my back, or this community of people, we understand what we're going through, and we know that this person is going to be there, or the community of people is going to be there for me. Man, and have a plan. Right, you have to have a plan. Right. And these are things that as a parent I don't think about. I legitimately think about my kids are going to take care of me, So just to know that people you just never know what people are going through. Period. Yeah. Like, I would have never known your struggle until you started your podcast. Because again, it's very self-explanatory. And it was like, oh wow, I would have never known that Civilla was going through this, Because I never talked about it. I never mentioned it. Because people will think you're a hater too. Yeah. They think you're jealous. Mm-hmm. And not only that, just like
knowing other women that's trying to conceive, right? I have kids, and it makes you feel weird to say to them like, oh, such and such pregnant, like, and then when, it's just, it makes it feel so uncomfortable.
Uncomfortable.
You want to be mindful of how that person feels,
Right.
Like, oh, this person, or, oh, such and such just had their baby, or, when you just have your baby and you know that they're trying, but a lot of people don't know that how do we, women that have children, how do we handle that? How should
Let me tell you. Let me tell you, a good place to start is to ask the person, especially if you're friends with the person and you know they're struggling, ask them first, are you okay with this conversation? That's a good place to start.
Mm-hmm.
And I was at church once, maybe a few months ago, and we were all doing something in the kitchen. And so it was like a whole bunch of us in the kitchen. And there was a woman in there who was very pregnant. And we were all just bumping into each other. And she turned and she like bumped me with her belly. And she's like, oh, I bumped you with my belly. And I'm thinking.
Like, does she know? No,
I don't think
wow.
so. Because I've never had that conversation with her. But what I'm saying is, depending on where you are in your journey, if she had done that to somebody who just found out they just failed their last IVF, they don't have another penny in the bank, no more IVF cycles for you, it could have been a different outcome.
Right. Yeah.
But for me, I just laughed on the inside. I laughed on the inside because I'm like, you know what? She doesn't know. She doesn't get it. And you have to and you have to be conscientious to the person who has children, who's pregnant as well. And that's what this podcast really is about. It's about talking to both sides of the conversation. The women who want children and can't have them, and the women who have children. We have to come to a place where we understand each other and where we want to understand each other. And so that's really what this podcast is about, is creating awareness as well.
That is very important for both sides to understand each other. For the woman that have children to understand the woman that doesn't. Because I feel like it's a disconnect.
Yes.
In some situations is a disconnect, and in some situations people just don't even know how to handle it. They don't know how to approach it. If they know, okay, this person is trying. Sometimes they'll say stuff like, sometimes I'll say stuff and I'll be like, oops, like, should I have said that? I don't want them to be uncomfortable, and I don't want to be uncomfortable.
Right.
It's like, what do you say? How do you say it? So it's good for both sides to
be
educated.
Right. It's definitely good for both sides to be educated about the other side, but I really also, from the bottom of my heart, I feel like it's what's in the heart too. If you are petty and messy, it's going to come through. I mean, anybody's got a woman who wants kids and knows that she's dealing with somebody. She'll know she's dealing with petty and messy. And again, that's why I didn't have a problem with that woman at church, because I don't think she was trying to be petty and messy. I think she's just happy. She's happy, and we were all working together. And you can tell what's in somebody's heart. You can catch the spirit or their vibe or whatever you want to call it. You can feel it, and you can feel when somebody's just plain messy.
Right. Civilla, I'm sure you've experienced that a lot throughout the years of people just messy, just like messy. They know you're strong, but they still handle it in a messy way. Does it still bother you though, like seeing other women conceiving and just being around it? Does it still bother you, or have you just completely healed from it?
I don't think we ever completely heal. Some people may disagree, but like I said, it's loss. I don't think anybody completely heals from loss, from losing somebody, because we lost the ability to have a child. Some people have had multiple miscarriages, Some people have gone to term and had a miscarriage, and it's just like that's a loss. You don't really
Yeah.
get over that, but you learn how to live with it. You learn how to deal with it, and I do talk to these women about dealing with these things with class and dealing, being classy even in the face of petty. And
Right.
so that's what this whole platform is all about. Just being, um, yeah, stillbirth. I mean, trust me. I mean, I've heard it all in the group. It's just unbelievable. And so you just have to learn how to. I think I'm not trying to sound funny, but I think I'm a little bit ahead, maybe slightly ahead of the group, and you kind of have to be to be, having a platform and a podcast like this. But I still have my moments. I think
Right.
my big moment is Mother's Day. I don't go to church on Mother's Day anymore
Oh.
because you're gonna have the mother stand up, but if you're not a mother, you're remaining seated, and then
Right.
you're in a position of being second class when you remain seated when all the other women who are mothers stand up. No,
And
thank you.
oh, I hear that, Miss Sevilla. And you know what? I never thought about it. And then I know for yourself, like because when you become a woman, older woman, I want to use the right word because you're still young. But when we get to a certain age, people automatically assume that you're a mother. So
Yes,
that's another
yes,
that
yes.
you have to
It's an
take into.
assumption.
Yes. Like I'm sure like you go to the grocery store, it's Mother's Day and they hand you a receipt, Happy Mother's Day. And they do it all the time. And I'm
Yes,
thinking to myself like, or even when we working in the industry that we work in, you hang
yes,
up, Mother's Day and the person on the other line will say Happy Mother's Day. And I think to myself, I say thank you because obviously I'm a mom. But I think to myself, how do you
yes,
know that
yes.
I'm a mother?
Yes. How do you know? Good question. And so then you say, if you're a mom, happy Mother's Day. And a woman who's not a mom will be so thankful for that tag. Just if you're a mom, happy Mother's Day. And
Right.
so this is the awareness I'm trying to create. I'm just
Right.
trying my very best to create awareness.
Right. And again, that's something that I never thought about. That's a better way to word it. If you're a mom, happy Mother's
Yes,
Day. Yes,
exactly.
man.
And it's not about walking on eggshells. It's just, it's being aware.
Being aware, being considerate, because everybody has their different struggles, everybody has their different things. And being a mom for those who want to, because I've met people who say,
Who don't want to be.
I don't want to be they don't have no issues conceiving as far as they know, and
Hmm.
they're just not into it. Like that's not
Right.
their journey. They don't want to be a mom. But for those that want that, it just until we're having this conversation, there's a lot of things that I never even thought about. Other
Yeah.
than the uncomfortableness of knowing that somebody wants to conceive or that's trying, and then you just try
Hmm.
to be mindful of the words that you say or, whatever. But I never knew that a lot of these, it's an etiquette basically.
Yes.
It's an etiquette. And
Yeah, it is an etiquette, but I still don't want people to walk away thinking that, oh my gosh, I got to walk on eggshells with my friend or my family member because they're trying to conceive and they can't have kids. And it's not about walking on eggshells. It's really literally about checking with them first, seeing if they're okay with the conversation, and then also just thinking about things from their point of view.
right. But there, like you said, there's so many women that suffer in silence. Like, for those that don't speak up for the fact that they're having issues, it's so like uncertain. It's just like okay, like for the woman at the church, she had no
Right.
clue probably what you're going through.
Right. Well, this was just not that long ago. So I'm at a place now. I think you kind of asked, and I don't know if I answered it really, but I'm at a place now where I'm generally okay
Mm-hmm.
with my situation.
Mm-hmm.
I'm generally okay because I'm not suicidal. I'm not trying to be glib, but I'm not suicidal.
Right.
I'm not not hateful, I'm not envious, I'm not jealous. And have never been my struggles. My thing was always, okay, why not me, God? That's always been my thing. Why not me? Why somebody else? Why the woman who has the child and abandons it or kills their child?
Mm-hmm.
Or like you heard that woman the other day killing her 11-year-old. It's like, and you decided that I couldn't have, oh, thank you, God. So my thing was been with God. It hasn't been with other women or women who have children. That's not been my thing. Mm-hmm. But I know that there are people who are dealing with different things, and those women are in the group, and I have to be able to speak life to them. Mm-hmm. And be positive, bring a sense of positivity, because I know they have told me that they have considered suicide. It's like, wow. It's like sometimes I'm like, I don't even know what to say, Yeah. But I gotta say something to help them come out of there. And some women have, they take medication. You do what you have to do. I don't have look, take the medication, okay? Go get you some medication.
And take it.
And take it. Because I don't want to hear nothing about you committed suicide. You go get that medication. And if there are people who have problems with it, that's just too bad for them. Because everybody's doing life to the best of their ability. And if you need a little bit of medication to get you through, go get you some. Right. That's the way I see it. And get counseling. And I offer that too. I offer that on my platform. But if you don't want to talk to me, at least I send you to a counselor. And I've interviewed a couple of therapists on my podcast. So please go get you some counseling or some medication or whatever you need to do.
Wow. And not to be insensitive, but have you ever been to that extent because you weren't able to conceive?
Yeah, because I'm like, what am I here for? Right. Why exactly am I on this planet? Yeah. Yes. Because I'm like, I just don't understand what I'm here for. What's the point? And that's what society makes women try to think is, why are you here? There's a couple of women in, I think it's Australia and the United Kingdom. These women are running those countries. They don't have kids. And when they were running for office, other women said, I don't understand why you're even running for office. You don't have kids. You don't even care about the future. You're not going to have any kids going into the future. This is the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, and I think it's the Prime Minister of Australia. These women, they just never had children, and other women have been that petty to them. So it's like we've got to up the level of sensitivity for sure.
Yeah, and with everything, I think with a lot of things, we have to be more mindful. That's the thing that I think we struggle with, like in society. And I struggle with it too. Like, we are not mindful of the things that we say and do. We just say and do whatever we want, and afterwards, the repercussion of the situation, you have to deal with it. But it's just like we're just not mindful anymore of anything that we say and do, and it's really becoming the butt of why we have a lot of issues. Even when we talk about racial issues and stuff like that, we have a lot of these issues because we're not being mindful of the things that we say. It's just
we're selfish.
Yes, very, 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 very selfish. Off of the topic a little bit, I was having a conversation with somebody recently. They had a mass shooting, and I had a conversation with my cousin's husband. Shout out to Eli. And we were talking about gun laws. And he was saying, he don't think they should take away guns. And I'm like, the American people are too selfish. We're too privileged. We're just spoiled. We are not responsible. And we just can't do it. We can't do it because we're not responsible. We're selfish. We're petty. We're childish. You know what I'm saying? It's just too much. But I just threw that out there just to say that we just are not mindful of a lot of things that we say and do.
Right.
Because of that, it causes a lot of issues in everyday life.
Oh yeah. I mean, that's what's happening right now. So it's just it's just a level of pettiness and just selfishness that's happening right now, and it's really too
Right.
bad. And I hope it changes soon.
Hopefully, because
Yeah.
I doubt it, because we're getting more and more petty every day.
Yeah.
So it doesn't seem like we're, digressing. It seems like we're just heading more and more towards the
Right.
petty. But
Right.
you're on episode 107. What was one of your most successful episodes? What was the topic about?
I actually interviewed a woman who has a very large, like millions of people worth of Childless Not by Choice platform. And so I interviewed her. Her name is Jody Day. I don't know if anybody listening has heard of Gateway Women, but I interviewed her, and I think that was the most listened to episode. I think that was episode 90, and I believe that was the most listened to episode because that was an episode where I read her book, because whenever I have a guest and they've written a book, I read through the book, so I have I have questions for them. And
Yes.
she really enjoyed the episode. She's from the UK, so I interviewed her in the UK. And in her book, she talks about the woman who, during the holidays, because she was single and childless, her family put her in a tent in the garden because they were trying to figure out where to put people, all the family that was coming to the house. And so since she was by herself and no children, they put her in a tent in the garden.
Wow. And that's what you're talking about as far as family members that's not like,
they're not aware of what they're
not
doing.
aware, and that had to be hurtful.
Yeah, there's a lot of hurtful stuff happening, and depending on where in the world you are, it can get dangerous, because society generally says that if you're a woman, you should have children, but there are certain countries in the world where you better produce. And I was reading a story recently where this woman had been married to a man for 3 years. He died. They had not had any children, and his family burnt down her house. She was of no use to them because she hadn't had any children for this man.
Wow.
So, bye. They're like, bye. We don't need you here.
Wow.
So.
I mean, and I never thought about how powerful, or how powerful having children is. Like,
right.
I don't know how to word it, and again, because I'm trying not to be insensitive and say the wrong things, but
look, just say what you gotta say.
No, it just seemed like it, not like, again, not even really thinking about it, but it seems like motherhood has some type of power, that I never even knew existed until, again, we're having this conversation. There are things that I never even thought about that was a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And you brought up something like the holidays. I can't even imagine, but again, like you said, it's just something that comes with your life, and I'm assuming it's just something that you have dealt with or is dealing with and continue to deal with, and it's it's a very amazing thing that you have a platform for other women that are struggling. Did anyone ever, do you know of, that follows you, that's gone that route and committed suicide? Or
not that I'm aware of. I do know that I get letters, like the latest letter I got was from a woman in Scotland who had been listening since 2015. And so a lot of people listen, but they don't say anything.
I know.
And that's for you too. People may never say that they're listening. Mm-hmm. But they are. And so she said, I've been listening to you since 2015, and you have given me the courage to go search for a group in my community. Mm-hmm. Because there's got to be a Childless Not by Choice group around the world, but you have to search throughout. But when you're hiding in plain sight, you don't always want to do that. You're not ready for it until you find out that, this is a thing. There's a podcast for this.
Right.
And so, there are hundreds of thousands of podcasts out there, but they're like, wow, there's somebody who understands what I'm saying, and she's saying what I'm thinking and what I'm feeling, and she's saying it, and she's out there with it. And so now she said she was going to go search for a community or a group in her community where she is in Scotland, and There's a woman in Australia, the very first woman to reach out to me when I first started my podcast. She messaged me and said, I have downloaded every episode and I listen to and from work.
Yes.
That was the first outreach I got. And I'm like, okay.
Wow.
When I want to quit.
How does it feel to know you have such an impact on so many women all around the world?
Humbled.
Yes.
I'm humbled. And I want more outreach because I don't have near enough listeners for the subject matter and for the number of people who are childless. Mm-hmm. So, but the people that do reach out to me, the listens that I do get, I'm completely and totally and utterly humbled that these people have gained a second wind, and that they're going to push through and try to make this work for them, this childlessness.
Right. So for the people that's listening, where can they go to find your podcast?
Just about anywhere, and I know it's difficult to explain to people, especially when they don't listen to podcasts, but the first place that we say is go to Apple. Go to Apple Podcast, formerly known as iTunes. And you can subscribe there. You can also, if you have a podcast player, if you have a smartphone, which most of us do, go to your smartphone. If it's an Apple device, there is a purple microphone on there. It's a podcast player. You can go in there and search for Childless Not by Choice. If you have an Android phone, you may have to go to your app store and just search for a podcast player. There are tons of podcast players out there, and just subscribe to Childless Not by Choice. And again, it's not just for the Childless Not by Choice. It's for anybody who wants to know a little bit more about the whole demographic.
Right. And so this is a whole thing that I am not really, familiar with. So if there is a question that I didn't ask or information that you want to put out there that I did not touch, by all means, just go ahead and get it out now.
Well, I do appreciate the questions you asked. I think they were great questions, and I would just want to reiterate that I don't want people to be scared to deal with the woman who has no children. I know a lot of times I walk into certain situations and people know about my podcast and they start to feel uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. And I don't want you to be uncomfortable because you're a mom. You're supposed to be happy to be a mom. It's an exciting thing. It's a wonderful thing. You're pouring. If most moms are good moms. I mean, we know we hear the crazy stories, but for the most part, most moms are good moms. They're pouring good things into their children. And that's what I like to see. I don't mind you talking to me about your kids because, again, I can tell if you're coming from a place of petty or if you're just really excited about your children. I can tell. So, that's not a problem for me. I want you to be excited about your kids and pour into them. I like you. I see, how you poured in, even when we were working at Aetna, how you just, Talene was that is your baby. You know what I mean? I mean, that was your baby, and she will always be your baby. Are you kidding me? I'm just so proud of how you're proud of her. Yeah. And that's what I'm trying to get the Childless Not by Choice women to see, that we can encourage the mom, because there are moms that we as Childless Not by Choice women can encourage and stand around and help and babysit or whatever we need to do. But don't do anything as a Childless Not by Choice woman that you're not ready for. Right. So if you're not ready to babysit, if you're not ready to take your family member to her OBGYN appointment and sit in a waiting room full of big bellies, then don't do it. You don't have to.
Speak up. Speak
up.
Yeah, people don't. And I'm a victim of that too. Sometimes people don't speak up for what they feel comfortable with. They just do it because they're trying to nice or whatever the case may be, but
so it goes. I'm talking to both sides. I'm talking to both sides of the conversation.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
So, yeah.
Tell me, are there any questions?
Yes, Jasmine has a question. She said, "Is the sensitivity level different for women who have experienced loss but have children compared to women who cannot conceive?"
You heard that?
I did, but this is I struggle to understand when a woman says that she can't really understand a woman who's childless not by choice, but I always say, just imagine that you don't have the kids that you have.
Right.
If you can imagine that everybody has an imagination.
Right.
If you can just imagine for a day that you don't have your children, how would you feel?
Right.
I mean, I don't know if I'm answering the question, but that's even if you end up having the kids, and there have been people who have wanted to be on my podcast who struggled through infertility, but they ended up having the kids. And I'm very, no. The answer is no, because you got a gift at the end of the struggle.
Right.
And I'm happy for you. I'm not being petty, but you got to understand that I have people that I'm talking to and who are listening to this podcast who will never get the gift at the end of the struggle.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not that I'm not happy for you, but you ended up getting a gift.
Right. At the end of the day,
at the end of the day,
you get that gift. Wow.
Yeah.
And it's again, I will say this again and again. I can't even imagine how many women are suffering in silence. You know, I see people who get married, and even with
union.
Not Megan Good, but is Megan Good? Does she have infertility issues, or they're just?
No.
But I'm talking about Dwayne Wade and
Isn't it Gabrielle Union?
Yes, Gabrielle.
Yeah.
I would have never known.
Or Michelle Obama.
Oh yes, I was reading about that the other day, that they had a surrogate. Wait, that's one of the questions I was going to ask you. So that could have never been an option.
I didn't think about that for me to have a surrogate. That wasn't a thought. I back in that time, I was only thinking about adoption. I really did not have surrogate. And you hear so many, maybe I'm being negative, but you hear so many stories of the surrogate changing their mind and all this crazy stuff. I guess it just never crossed my mind.
Wait, can they change their mind if it's their sperm and everything belongs to somebody?
I don't know if in the case of the surrogate where it's that sperm, I don't know. But I mean, like, if you ask somebody to have a child for you, I've heard stories where the woman has changed her mind and opted to keep the child. I don't know, like you said, that's a good question. I don't know if they could change their mind in that case, because I'm sure there's different types of paperwork that they sign, because that's really not their
child.
Exactly.
Okay. Period. You're just the host.
Exactly.
Period.
But I never thought about that.
Yeah, and you know what? Back in those times,
right,
surrogate probably wasn't even that popular yet.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
Like 10, 15 years ago, I don't think so.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
And that's totally a wrap. You're done. You're not.
Yeah, I'm done. I'm so done. I'm good.
Really?
I'm good. I really am good. I am at the place now where I have my good days and my bad days, because you're suffering loss and you're dealing with a loss.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not at the place now where I used to go home and cry.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to there was a time when somebody, a couple of times when a certain person did something petty, and I would go home and cry and tell my mom about the pettiness of the person. And I would I've come to the realization, especially with her help, by the way, with my mom's help, and she's had 5 children, there's 5 of us, and she was told that she was never going to have kids. So even those who are struggling to have children, if you are still in a place where you can try, and you are trying, you have to come to the realization as to when you should no longer try, when it's time to stop. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's some people who have had, working at Aetna, you see these different rounds of IVF that people pay for pretty much out of pocket because insurance doesn't cover it. So you have to come to the realization as nobody else can tell you when to stop or not to stop. Right. You have to come to that realization. Right. So, it's just a lot. It's a lot of different conversations going on, but I try to stay strong.
Right. I mean, you have no choice. You have such an amazing platform. You have no choice but to stay strong. But
Yeah.
I know that for the people that listen, I know they're very grateful and thankful for you.
Yeah.
But to have that platform where they can go to where they it's relatable, you know,
Yeah.
where they can have somebody that they can relate to, and you know, like you said, with your encouraging words, get a community, because a lot of people do wonder, even women, even people with children wonder what their kids, you know, what's going to happen to them when they get older.
Yeah.
Because you never know, these kids put you in a nursing home.
Oh yeah. You look at
You know what that means, honey? No nursing home for me.
You want to be in a nursing home?
They put you in a nursing home and all this stuff.
They don't call, they forget about you.
Yes.
I mean, I've heard those stories too. And it's sad, you know. Uh-oh.
It's very sad. Tally. She better not put me in a nursing home, Civilla.
She won't.
She's a nurse.
So why she gonna get me a nurse?
Oh my gosh.
I'm just playing, I love you.
Child, anyway. She just better not put me in a nursing home, that's all I know.
She won't do that.
Yeah, that's what they say now. And then you get old and grumpy. I'm already miserable. That's what she gonna do.
Oh my gosh, don't say that.
Oh, she old and she grumpy. I have to put her in a nursing home. I can't.
You'll be all right.
Hopefully.
Have that plan.
Right. Shoot.
Yes.
Even, see, there you go. Even as a woman with children, you should still have that plan, because you never know what kids are going to do.
Right.
You know,
and that's why, you have to have the plan, because you have to have I talk about life insurance in there as well, because you're single, you're childless, whatever. When you pass, do you have enough saved up in your checking and savings account to pay for your final expenses, or everybody in the family gonna have to pitch in and get up a GoFundMe because you didn't get a little? And you don't have to get a huge $250,000 policy. Just get a policy, look and see how much it costs to get buried, and get a policy to cover that. That's it.
Right.
You know? And so that's why this particular episode is really good for no matter what demographic you fit into. It's really good information, if I do say so myself.
Well, Miss Civilla, I thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule. Oh wait, before we go, how was the podcast event?
Oh my gosh, Podfest, it was awesome. I've made so many friends. So many people have sent me friend requests. I'm going to be interviewing a couple people. And I was also interviewed by somebody, so I'm going to put that out there as soon as I get it from him. So Podfest was awesome. It was an awesome podcasting event, and I really hope that you can make it next year, because it's always in the Orlando area.
Okay. I hope I can make it next year. You know, I just started a new job, and it was like I could not get the time off. I wanted to go so bad because I want to start to mingle with other podcasters, and you know, and I don't have that support, you know, from other podcasters, and it makes it so hard sometimes, because I need that support. I need that, you know, feedback. I need that help, because I'm still fairly new in it. Yeah. And it's still a journey. And like I said, every other day I want to give up.
Me too.
I'm like, I just can't.
Every podcaster's that way, just about. You really? Talk to any. Oh yeah, we'll talk. I have some information for you. Yes. But I have my moments too. I've had my moments where I just sat there, like, I can't take this anymore. I'm done. Yeah. And then I come back because I know my why.
Right, exactly, and that's it. It's like, okay, I want my audience to grow, but at the end of the day, I'm doing it because I love it, you know. And I feel like this is information people need to know, you know, whether they feel like it's boring or not. This is information people need to know. People are suffering in silence. There's so many different topics that I've talked about, so many different guests that I've brought on. People are struggling with these things, but you know, if you're not doing like the drama-filled stuff, it's just like takes it a little longer for people to catch on. But
catch on.
Yep. But as a fellow podcaster, we just got to keep pushing.
That's right.
Keep going. But I definitely really feel like your podcast, the information that you're throwing out there is amazing, and is stuff that people definitely need to know. So,
thank you.
Thanks again for being on my podcast. Do you want to tell them one more time where they can find you before we go?
Thank you so much for asking me. Thanks for being patient through the tech issues at the beginning, and I don't know what's going on throughout, but I know all is well. All is well, and I can be found. The podcast is Childless, Not by Choice. You can find it on Apple Podcasts, formerly known as iTunes, Overcast, Castro, whatever podcast player you want to use. You can also listen on the website. If you're a low-tech person and you don't want to deal with getting a podcast player app, then you can go to childlessnotbychoice.net, and there's a podcast tab on there. The community tab is there. There's a tab for the blogs. Most of the blogs were written by women in the group who are childless, not by choice. So it's just a lot of information on that website. So yeah, you can listen from there as well.
Nice. All right, guys. So we are going to wrap it up. Thanks for listening to the Traveling Pants of a Single Mom, and we out.
Bye.
Thanks, Civilla.
You're welcome.